Matt Reeves' new film, The Batman, is totally going to blow you away. Here's why. Dude, it's so good. It's so good. All right, 3, 2, 1. What is going on, everyone? It is Sean O'Connell, the managing editor here at CinemaBlend, and I am giving you a spoiler-free review of Matt Reeves' new film, The Batman. It is the first new movie starring Robert Pattinson as Vengeance, launching a new franchise and taking us to corners of Gotham that we haven't yet seen. And because there's so many amazing things in this movie that I want you to experience on your own, I'm not going to give away any plot details, and I'm going to try to avoid specifics as much as possible. I'll keep it to everything that's sort of limited to the trailers, because I know that DC fans, superhero comic book fans, and especially Batman fans want to go into this as clean and pure as possible, but you're probably curious about how it plays, and you at least want to, set the expectations to know what you're getting into when you go into this movie in March. So before we get into the review, do me a favor, go down and hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. We post spoiler-free reviews like this all the time, and we also do plenty of analysis and in-depth videos as well too. And if you're here on CinemaBlend for your Batman needs, we're gonna have interviews with the cast and analysis of the movie once it's in theaters.
Come on, Vengeance, let's get into some trouble.
Let's start with the runtime, because you might hear 3 hours and worry that it's a bit of overkill from Matt Reeves. I have to tell you that I didn't feel the 3-hour runtime of The Batman at all. It literally felt like 45 minutes. And the minute that the movie was over, I was legitimately pissed and could have sat there and watched 3 more hours of the story that was unfolding, because there was so much going on. There is a lot of movie in The Batman. And to that point, I mean that the story that Matt Reeves has concocted goes down so many different avenues that it's, not just limited to Batman and the case that he's going on. You have different character developments that go on with the Riddler, with Penguin, with Catwoman, with Carmine Falcone, with Commissioner Gordon, or who's not yet commissioner, and everything that's going on in Gotham. And so I'll get to that in my next section. But basically, the way that Matt Reeves is able to structure out this story, you're kind of immersed in the mystery with Robert Pattinson's Batman. So you are either confused when he's confused, or exhilarated or terrified when he's encountering those things as the mystery of the movie unfolds. Like I said, I could not believe how riveted I was in this entire story. It's unlike any other story that we've seen play out in a Batman movie up to this point. The approach that they take with Robert Pattinson's Batman, and they've said this before, is like they're trying to emphasize the world's greatest detective aspect of him, and so the movie sort of plays out that way. And because of that, I was really hanging on every word and really engrossed in the mystery and trying to figure out what was going on next. I spent a lot of time trying to decipher what was going on with Riddler. I think that Riddler is a terrific villain for that reason. It allows us a different way into the movie. So I wasn't, turned off by the runtime in the least bit. You might just want to make sure you go to the bathroom before you go into it, because 3 hours is a really long time. But that runtime flew by for me. And I really just wanted to stay in this world longer and hope we get a chance to do so.
Don't worry, honey.
All right, I know that the movie is called The Batman, but the reason why this movie works so well for me is that it's not just about Batman. Like, Matt Reeves seems as invested in Gotham as a whole and all of the characters that occupy it. He takes a lot of time to develop really fascinating characters like Carmine Falcone, who is a organized crime boss played by the brilliant John Turturro. John Turturro is outstanding in this. He takes the time to sort of set up Penguin, played by Colin Farrell, who is like remarkable with the makeup that's happening there. Like, you see no bit of Colin Farrell going on in there. Matt Reeves takes the time to also establish very much the Wayne legacy. No, we don't have to sit through Batman's parents dying again, but the shadow that is cast over Gotham by the loss of Thomas and Martha Wayne is integral to the point of this story. Through Catwoman and through Batman, we do get into a lot of the other things that are going on in the history of Gotham, and that's really, really important to the way that the story is being told. There's a lot of stuff with the backstory between Alfred and Bruce that is important to the way this story is being told. And because Matt Reeves seems as interested in the city as a whole, the landscape, and the way that the history of the city contributes to the story that he's trying to tell, anytime that we detour away from Batman, it's just as interesting to me. It was to me, and I was as compelled to follow those characters. As strange as this is to say, if Batman was off the screen for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I would have been totally fine following some of these other characters. Now, He doesn't. There's plenty of Batman in this movie, and he's definitely weaved into all those smaller subplots. But Matt Reeves has laid out this incredibly rich tapestry of characters that exist in a really, really fascinating and realized world that, should they carry it over to HBO Max the way that they are rumored to be doing it, I know that they said there's going to be a Penguin show that they're using to extend this world, and also a Gotham City Police Department show. And if either of them get off the ground, I just want to spend more time in this world, because the Gotham that he set up, again, is unlike anything that we've ever seen and is truly fascinating. And I just want to sort of stay at the street level of it and feel the impact that Robert Pattinson's Batman has over the course of this entire landscape.
I'm just here to unmask the truth about this cesspool we call a city. You're part of this too.
Hey, still! Stay still!
How am I part of this?
Okay, as is usually the case with a Batman movie, however, the villains kind of eclipse the hero. So let's talk about Robert Pattinson's Batman first, and then I'll get into the effectiveness of the villains. This is Batman in year 2, and Pattinson, the way that he plays him, is obsessed with being Batman. Like, anytime that he has to be Bruce Wayne, he seems extremely uncomfortable because he feels like he's wasting time. He'd rather be wearing the cowl. He'd rather be out on the streets doing something to improve Gotham. And that differs so much from the other versions that we've seen prior to, whether it was Ben Affleck playing a grizzled, world-weary Batman in the Zack Snyder films that we saw, having all this experience. Robert Pattinson does not occupy that part at all. And, even in especially in the Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher versions, and to a certain extent in the Nolan ones, they maintained a level of camp. And now if it's the Joel Schumacher ones, that it dove fully into camp. And with the Nolan ones, it had a hint of it with the existence of some of the villains that took place in that world. There is an ounce of camp in this version that Matt Reeves has put together. It is dark and disturbing and at times incredibly sad. I mean, this is one of the saddest versions of Batman that I think any of us have ever seen, and it's really that's authentic to the character. Like, this is not a well-balanced character. It leans very heavily into the paranoia. Robert Pattinson really nails the paranoia that comes with being this Batman. He is constantly investigating all of the people who are around him in his inner circle because he has no trust whatsoever in anybody who's there. Maybe in Gordon, that's probably the only person that he will allow in to a certain extent, and Alfred, I guess, to a certain extent. But you get to a point in this film where it seems like, as this mystery is unfolding, everyone is a suspect. And it's because of the paranoia that Robert Pattinson is conveying. He's a good Batman. He's effective. He's younger. He's a lot more agile. The suit that he's in allows him to be a lot more physical. The fight sequences in it are intense and brutal.
I'm vengeance.
But he is eclipsed by the villains. There's just no denying the fact that Paul Dano's Riddler and Colin Farrell's Penguin and absolutely John Turturro's Carmine Falcone are just more interesting. I don't think that I was as riveted by Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, and part of it is the way that her story plays out in the overall narrative, and so I want to stay away from that for that reason. She's great in the part, but the part wasn't as important to the overall story as the way that Riddler and Penguin and Carmine Falcone fit into it. So, and the thing about Riddler is, it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff as he's sort of manipulating the bigger mystery. And with Penguin, it's all of them. They're all they're seeds that are planted in this larger Gotham story, but you want to see how they are going to develop and keep making problems for Robert Pattinson's Batman. Sometimes they rise up and create a lot of issues right now. Sometimes it's a tease for things that are going to come later on down the line. But over the course of this 3 hours, because you have so much time to spend with these characters in this world, they all have really credible and meaty motivations that that if Matt Reeves wanted to pick them up and go in that direction later on, there's already a ton of backstory that's laid out with them because the performances are so fantastic, the characters are so enriching, and I feel like we just sort of scratched the surface about all the things that this Batman can do.
Can you rank your favorite Batman, just the past three? So Bale, Batfleck, Pattinson.
Sure. All right, so I know you want me to rank the Batman. I understand. I still think Ben Affleck's is the best. I liked that version of Bruce Wayne. Affleck still had the sort of playboy swagger that came with being Bruce Wayne, and when he was Batman, he was a beast. Pattinson, listen, it's tough to judge because I've only seen him in the one movie so far. he doesn't like being Bruce Wayne. And so the Bruce Wayne elements are uncomfortable because he's uncomfortable being Bruce Wayne. I love the detective elements of this Batman. You'll see that there are terrific examples of him sort of putting the pieces of this mystery together. And that's why Riddler is a fascinating choice. I'm going to put Bale last in the threesome, just because of the silly voice.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
And Batman in the Dark Knight trilogy was always overshadowed by his villains, like Ra's al Ghul and the Joker, and then Bane were all far more interesting than Christian Bale's Batman, although I did love the training sequences of Batman Begins and the launch of that hero. So if I'm ranking them, Affleck, Pattinson, Bale, but all of them are great for different reasons. All right, ultimately, the reason why the Batman works as well as it does is because Matt Reeves is behind the camera. And Matt Reeves is a genius who hires truly brilliant collaborators to work with him. So Matt Reeves directed Cloverfield back in the day, which at the time of the found footage genre was a really groundbreaking entry into that category. And I love the way that he sort of leaned into the mystery box that J.J. Abrams always establishes of like, what is the Cloverfield monster and what even is Cloverfield as a movie? Like, if you remember how great that trailer was. He remade the vampire film, Let the Right One In, a US remake called Let Me In, which was extremely effective. And then he moved on to the Planet of the Apes movies, of which he knocked them completely out of the park. He took a good sort of genre franchise and morphed it into a truly mature and deep and analytical film about, you know, all these different human aspects of the way that we exist as a society. And, you know, you probably didn't expect to get that out of the Planet of the Apes franchise. He brings that sort of contemplative approach to the world of DC and Gotham and the way that the Batman fits into it. And he's an amazing storyteller. Like the way that he's able to pace out all of the action, the way that he's able to develop all the characters that are in the Batman. But then he brings over Greig Fraser, who's an Oscar-nominated cinematographer for Dune, and creates these incredible looks for Gotham at night. The majority of this film takes place at night. So Greig Fraser has to come up with different ways to light Gotham and to make it sort of a place where you know that all this action is happening, but you don't lose track of it because it's not a complete shadow. Even when they move inside, there are nightclub sequences and an entire set piece that's set up inside of an arena that has to be lit in specific ways. And Greig Fraser figures out amazing ways to do that. Matt Reeves, one of the best decisions he made was to bring Greig Fraser on board. And I have to talk about Michael Giacchino's score, because Giacchino's resume in general is remarkable. And, you know, having to come up with a new original score for a character as recognizable as Batman is really hard. Like Hans Zimmer did an incredible job. Danny Elfman did an incredible job. And so he's kind of like standing on the shoulders of those guys, but still coming up with something different. And he has managed to put together a masterful score that sets the mood for this specific Batman and this specific Gotham. And it's just a great, another great example, Giacchino is, of the smart decisions that Matt Reeves made behind the scenes to put all of this together into a package that is truly special and really works better than I anticipated going into it. For my final thoughts, I mean, literally, I wanted to sit in the theater and spend 3 more hours in this world. So I was engrossed with what was happening. I was blown away by what Matt Reeves was able to put together. I know it's an incredibly difficult task to do, to come up with a new version of Batman, a different interpretation of a character who has been on screen multiple times before, but I truly think that they did it. I'm going 4.5 stars out of 5. There's a few elements that knock it down from being a 5, and I could get into them after spoilers are revealed, so I can't tell you what it is here. It's not a perfect movie, but it is as damn close to perfect as you're gonna get, and in terms of Batman movies, it's a real revelation that even for diehard Batman fans, they're going to find something new and exciting and unexpected out of this package. The Batman is going to be in theaters on March 4th. And also let us know if you want us to do a deep dive spoiler review of the Batman. In the meantime, make sure you keep it here on CinemaBlend by hitting like and subscribe. Check out all of our videos as we drop them on the channel, and we'll have plenty more content for the Batman as we head up into that March release.